Hello, this is Ubuntu Gicha. Graphic-based interfaces are called GUI, and text-based interfaces are called TUI. Since the execution environment for a TUI is typically a terminal, it is often used interchangeably with CLI, which refers to a command line interface. Therefore, for the sake of convention, I will also use CLI and TUI interchangeably here. Starting with Ubuntu 26.04 TLS, the default terminal emulator is Tixis. Developed in a modern manner based on GTK4, it is an excellent terminal emulator that does not require replacement with additional third-party applications. Since the CLI uses only text, methods are used to compensate for this monotony, such as displaying icons using font glyphs or drawing images using ASCII characters. To help understand images drawn with ASCII characters, I will install HiFetch and continue the explanation. While the default color arrangement is horizontal rainbow, I will set it to Ubuntu's solid orange color. The default fetch backend is NeoFetch. Other fetch backends must be pre-installed to run. I will save the configuration. When you run HiFetch, the logo of the Linux distribution you are using is displayed. In my case, the Ubuntu logo is displayed, but the circle is stretched vertically, making it an ellipse. Since ASCII characters are vertically elongated rectangular letters, images in a TUI environment are drawn assuming a font cell aspect ratio of 1:2. However, factors such as line height and baseline are taken into account to suit the language, so in reality, the cell aspect ratio becomes larger than 1:2, and the image is stretched vertically as well. In the English environment of Ubuntu, the default cell size is 8 pixels by 18 pixels, resulting in an image that is longer vertically than horizontally. For reference, in the Korean and Japanese, the default cell size is 8 pixels by 22 pixels, causing the vertical stretch to be quite jarring to the eye. This is one of the reasons I installed and use Ubuntu in English. I will modify the cell size to achieve a 1:2 ratio. If you set the custom font to monospace 10, it becomes 8 pixels by 17 pixels. It is closer to a circle than when using the system font, but the height of the font cell is still slightly longer. You can adjust the column spacing to match the font cell ratio to 1:2, but this will increase the spacing between characters. I will set the custom font to monospace 11. The font cell size becomes 9 pixels by 18 pixels, so the font cell ratio becomes 1:2 without needing to adjust line spacing or column spacing. The Ubuntu logo has finally become a circle without being distorted. Note that even if you set the same monospace as a custom font, line height and baseline values differ depending on the language. Restoring the previous session can be convenient, but personally, I find it cluttered, so I will disable it. The window size is also restored to the last size when opening a new window, but you can configure it to run at your preferred size. Reflecting the changed cell size, I will adjust the terminal size to a 16:9 ratio to match the video size. Working in the terminal can be monotonous because it is text-based. NerdFonts provides iconized image font glyphs. Using image-based text in the terminal improves readability and allows you to visually decorate the screen. Since NerdFonts is managed on GitHub, you can download it via Git clone, but it may take over an hour due to its large size. I recommend downloading the zip file from the site. Depending on your network environment, the download took about 8 minutes here. I will navigate to the location where the zip file was downloaded. I will now unzip the file. Since the zip file is over 3 GB in size, unzipping will take some time. I will navigate to the unzipped directory. Running the install.shish file will install the fonts. I will remove the directory where the file was unzipped. I will also remove the downloaded compressed file. You must restart the terminal to apply nerd fonts. You can launch the terminal by finding it in the Applications menu, but you can also launch it via the shortcut Ctrl-Alt-T. The Vim editor is widely used as a text editor in CLI environments, and I also prefer it. However, the Vim editor installed by default on Ubuntu is Vimtiny, which not only does not support color syntax but also has various limited features, such as the inability to use arrow keys in insert mode and user-defined commands. I will perform a fresh installation of Vim that can be used properly. I will install Vim GTK3, which provides integration with the GUI. Since the Vim editor is a CLI application, it cannot use the system clipboard used in GUI environments when copying and pasting. To use the system clipboard used in GUI environments within the Vim editor, you must use a Vim editor that has implemented it partially using a GUI library. Since the default text editor in the CLI environment is Nano, I will set it to Vim GTK3 in Select Editor. I will also configure the sudo command so that Vim GTK3 is used for tasks in the root account. The Vim editor allows for various configurations to suit personal preferences. However, since reconfiguring Vim every time a new environment is set up is inconvenient, I manage my Vim configuration using Git. I will now install Git. Since many CLI utilities are also managed via Git and most development work is handled through it, Git is essential. Managing Vim configuration with Git requires familiarity with Git-related commands. It is not intuitive and involves inconveniences such as having to navigate to the .vim directory to work. Vimy allows you to manage Vim configuration with Git more easily and intuitively. Installing Vimy is simple, just download it to a directory in your path using wget. I will grant execute permissions. I will run vimy init to retrieve the integrated Vim packages and configurations from the Git repository. I will now enter the address of the repository managed by Git. If you use multiple accounts on a Git server within the same domain, authentication issues may arise. However, specifying the username before the domain address can prevent conflicts. If you set the username and user email to global, you can simply press enter without entering anything. Entering the values will apply them to the local repository. Even when setting account information in Git, it is better to configure it per repository rather than globally, even if it is a bit cumbersome, to avoid account conflicts. I am currently using the default settings for .vimrc to manage files via Git. The difficulty of creating a Git repository and initially setting up Vim packages and configurations can act as a kind of barrier to entry for the Vim editor. Vimy 2.7 is set to provide templates. Even without a Git repository, Vimy 2.7 will allow you to immediately create a setup using pre-configured Vim packages and configurations via the templates provided by Vimy. While Vimy 2.6 does not yet have template features, it helps you reconfigure your previous environment exactly as it was if you were managing an existing Vim configuration in a Git repository. The most frequently used tools in a CLI environment are likely the Vim editor and the ls command. Powerfully configuring just these can make the CLI environment much more pleasant. The ls command simply lists file names. If you run the ls command with the l option, detailed information is displayed as well. The command with l and the uppercase F option added after ls can also be executed simply as the ll command. The uppercase F option adds an indicator to the end of the file name based on the file category. It displays an indicator such as a slash after a directory, an asterisk after an executable file, an equal after a socket, or an at after a link, but honestly, since color schemes are supported these days, this might not be a significant advantage. The output of ls is a bit cluttered because it does not distinguish between directories and files and displays them in alphabetical order. The default shell in Ubuntu is bash. You can change the configuration for the bash shell by editing the .bashrc file. To search in the Vim editor, type / followed by your search term. The Vim editor is in normal mode by default. You must enter insert mode to edit files. Pressing uppercase moves the cursor to the end of the line and allows you to enter insert mode immediately. For reference, pressing uppercase I moves the cursor to the beginning of the line and enters insert mode. I will set the directory to be visible first. In normal mode, press colon and then WQ to save and exit. You must restart terminal for the changes to take effect. I will run ls again with the L option. Now that directories and files are separated, it looks a bit better, but the file list display is monotonous. I will switch to LSD, which adds colors and icons. I will copy the download link address for the latest version deb file. I will download the LSD installation deb file using wget. I will install LSD. I will remove the installation file. You just need to use LSD instead of ls. It displays file sizes along with units and distinguishes dates by color. It also displays icons corresponding to file types. If you haven't installed nerd fonts, all the icons will be broken. LSD also displays directories and files mixed together by default, without distinction. I will navigate to the .config directory under the home directory. The home directory can be simply accessed using the tilde symbol. I will create an LSD directory within the .config directory and move directly there. The config.yaml file under the created directory is the configuration file. Press I to switch to insert mode. I will set the directory to appear before files. I prefer the ISO date format. Additionally, I will configure it to display the day of the week. If Nerd Fonts is not installed or you do not want icons displayed, you can hide them. I will press ESC to switch back to normal mode. Press DD to remove lines one by one. I will save and exit. Since the home directory can be simply accessed using the tilde symbol, running cd followed by a tilde will navigate to the home directory, but running cd alone will also navigate to the home directory. I will run it again with the L option after LSD. Now, directories are displayed before files. Dates are also output in the ISO format I prefer. You are likely more familiar with the ls and ll commands, so having to use a separate command is a bit inconvenient. This can be resolved by changing LSD to an alias for ls. Let's open the .bashrc file in the Vim editor. You can search by typing a keyword after a slash, and you can recall previous searches using the up and down arrow keys. I will comment out the alias ls that I set up earlier so that the directory is displayed first. I will set LSD as an alias for ls so that the ls and ll commands are executed as LSD. To move the focus one page at a time, use Shift followed by the up and down arrow keys. In normal mode, press colon and enter a number to move to the corresponding line. While Ubuntu's terminal emulator applies a color prompt by default, it may not be applied in terminals embedded in third-party applications. You can enable it by setting Force Color Prompt to Yes. Typing X deletes the character at the cursor position. You must restart the terminal for the changes to take effect. Now, running the existing ls command instead of LSD will execute LSD. LL will also execute LSD. LSD can also be used instead of the tree command. This is also now possible with the ls command. The tree view also displays icons, making it visually appealing and improving readability. Thank you for watching.